Morning arrived earlier than expected, not brighter, just undeniable. The river looked unchanged, which no longer meant reassurance. Mole stood at the bank, before the light fully settled, watching the water move, with the same quiet certainty it always had. Yesterday, waiting had ended. Today, something else had begun. Rat joined him soon after. Already awake, already carrying the weight of decisions that had not yet been spoken aloud, neither of them mentioned. The man from the path, neither of them needed to. The river had accepted the fact, that was enough. Badger arrived last, as he often did. When the ground itself required acknowledgments, "It's moving," he said. Rat nodded, yes. Mole did not ask what it was. He could feel it in the way the air pressed closer, in the way sound traveled farther than it should have. Movement had begun elsewhere, and the world had adjusted without consulting them. They walked downstream together, not quickly, but without hesitation. The path was familiar, yet each step landed with more intention than it had the day before, when the river bent sharply. They saw it. Not the work itself, that was still beyond the trees, but the signs that could not be undone. Stakes in the ground, marks where soil had been disturbed, a clearing where none had been before. Mole stopped. "This is real," he said quietly. Rat rested a hand on the side of the boat, feeling how the river responded to the slight change in weight. "Yes," he replied, "and it's early." Badger surveyed the bank, reading the landscape. "The way others read arguments, they haven't committed yet," he said. "They're preparing." The distinction mattered. Preparation could be interrupted, commitment could not. Mole felt something settle inside him, not courage, but alignment. "If we do nothing," he asked, "what happens?" Rat answered without looking up. "Then the river adapts," he said, "and so does everything around it." Badger turned toward Mole. "And if we act," he added, "we accept responsibility." For what follows, the words did not threaten, they clarified. For a moment, no one spoke. The river moved past him, indifferent to hesitation. Patient with outcomes somewhere ahead, would struck earth again, the sound carrying faintly. Through the trees, Mole inhaled slowly. "I don't want it decided without us," he said. Rat met his gaze. "Neither do I." Badger nodded once. "Then we stop waiting," he said. They did not rush forward. They stood where they were, understanding that the next step, whenever it came, would belong to them. And for the first time, the river did not feel like a guide. It felt like a witness. They did not announce themselves when they reached the edge of the clearing. There was no gate, no sign to mark the transition, only a subtle change in how the ground responded beneath their feet. The earth here had already been measured. Wooden posts stood in uneven lines, some driven deep, others waiting beside shallow holes as if unsure whether they would be needed. The river curved nearby, close enough to be affected, far enough to pretend otherwise. Mole felt smaller here. Not powerless, but newly aware of scale. Rat walked a few steps ahead, eyes scanning the bank. Not looking for damage, but for intention. Badger lingered behind them, watching, not the work, but the spaces between it. Not powerless, but newly aware of scale. Rat walked a few steps ahead, eyes scanning the bank. Not looking for damage, but for intention. Badger lingered behind them, watching not the work, but the spaces between it. "They're careful," Rat said quietly. "That means they expect resistance." Mole swallowed. "Or regret," he offered. Badger shook his head. "Regret comes later," he said. "This is calculation." They heard voices then. Low, unhurried, spoken by people who believed they had time, a man stepped into view. Sleeves rolled, boots already marked by mud that did not belong to this place. He paused when he saw them. Surprised, then unsurprised. "I wondered when you'd come," he said. Rat did not respond immediately. "We didn't," he said finally. "We were already here." The man smiled slightly, as though that confirmed something he had suspected. "You'll have to move back," he said, gesturing loosely. "This area has been claimed." Badger stepped forward. "By whom?" he asked. The man hesitated, just long enough. "By necessity," he replied. The word landed poorly. Mole felt heat rise in his chest, but he did not speak. Instead, he watched the river. It flowed steadily, unaware of ownership, unconcerned with explanation. "You can still stop," Rat said. "Nothing permanent's been done." The man followed his gaze. "To the water, permanent is a matter of time," he said. "And time's already moving." Badger's voice cut through calmly. "So's responsibility," he said, "and it doesn't disappear just because you act first." The man studied them, then really looked as though weighing whether they mattered enough to slow him down. "You want this place unchanged," he said at last. "That's not neutral." "That's a choice," Mole spoke before he realized. He had decided to, so is changing it without listening, he said. The man raised an eyebrow, surprised again, this time genuinely. "For someone so small," he said, "you speak with certainty." Mole felt his hands tremble, but his voice remained steady. "Not certainty," he replied, "care." The word hung there, simple and exposed. For a moment, no one moved. Then footsteps sounded behind them, quick, uneven. Toad emerged from the trees, coat askew, eyes bright with urgency. "That had nowhere to settle. I told you I'd handle it," he said, breathing hard. Rat turned sharply. "Toad," he said. The man frowned. "So this is the one," he said, the enthusiast. Toad bristled. "I can fix this," he said quickly. "I've explained." Badger raised a hand. "Stop," he said. Toad froze, more startled by the tone than the command. Badger looked at him steadily. "This is no longer about fixing," he said. "It's about choosing who carries the weight." Toad opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, he did not rush to fill the space. The river moved on beside them, steady, attentive, and in that pause, each of them understood what the next words would require. The pause did not last. It could not. A sound broke it first, wood striking earth, sharper than before. Closer, someone had resumed working. The man by the posts did not turn. He did not need to. "This is happening," he said. "Whether you stay or not." That was when Toad moved. Not forward, but sideways, placing himself directly between the nearest post and the riverbank. It was an awkward position, poorly chosen, but unmistakable. "No," Toad said, louder than he had meant to. "No, you can't just—" The worker looked up, then, annoyance flashing briefly, before calculation returned. "You're in the way," he said. "I know," Toad replied. And for once, he did not explain further. Rat felt the shift immediately. This was no longer conversation, this was friction. He stepped forward as well, standing beside Toad, close enough that retreat would require decision. Mole followed, his legs shook, but they carried him anyway. Badger came last, placing himself not at the front, but behind them, a quiet anchor, making it clear that no one here stood alone. The river responded, not dramatically, but unmistakably. A stronger current pressed against the bank, water lifting debris that had settled undisturbed for years. "Careful!" someone shouted. From farther down the clearing, the man turned sharply now. "You're creating a problem," he said, voice tight. Rat met his gaze. "No," he replied. "We're revealing one." The worker nearest the post hesitated, hammer still raised, time narrowed. "If you continue," Badger said calmly, "you do it knowing you were asked to stop." The words carried weight, not because they threatened, but because they recorded. The man glanced around, counting bodies, measuring resolve. "You'll regret this," he said. Toad laughed, a short, breathless sound. "I already do," he said. "That's why I'm here." Something shifted then, not in the men, but in the space between them. The river surged again, water spilling over the edge, undermining the freshly disturbed soil. A post leaned, then another. Someone swore. "Pull back," a voice called. "Just pull back." The hammer dropped, not thrown, released. For a moment, everything moved at once. Shouts, water, footsteps, the sharp realization that control was never as firm as it felt from a distance. Then it slowed. The men retreated a few steps, not defeated, but interrupted. The river claimed the edge it had been testing, water rushing into the loosened ground. Erasing lines drawn too quickly, silence returned, but it was different now. Charged, unsettled, alive, the man exhaled slowly. "This isn't finished," he said. Badger nodded. "No," he agreed. "It isn't." The men withdrew, not far, but enough. Enough for the moment. Mole realized his hands hurt from clenching them. Rat rested against the boat, breathing hard. Toad sat down abruptly on the grass, as though his legs had finally remembered what they were carrying. "I didn't fix it," he said. "No," Rat replied gently, "but you stopped running." Toad looked up at the river, watching the water settle into its confirmation of movement. "What happens now?" he asked. Badger answered without hesitation. "Now," he said, "we stay." The river moved on, altered but not broken. Bearing marks of resistance and response, nothing had returned to how it was. Something had been chosen. And as the light faded, not quietly this time, but with the full weight of days spent, they understood. The cost had begun to be paid. Not all at once, but together. And that, finally, was enough.